Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled that you're here for our webinar where we'll be talking a little bit more about the impact that data has on marketing and sales for MedTech firms. But before we dive in, I want to introduce you to our two very experienced health tech leaders, Diana Chan and Amy Siegel, who are here to share their experience and expertise in how to leverage data for better sales and marketing in med device. If you both wouldn't mind giving yourselves a little introduction, that would be great. Diana, can you share a little bit about who you are and how you know Amy?
Absolutely. So thank you, Courtney and Amy, for having me on this conversation. I'm Diana Chan, as you both know. I'm a medical device consultant, and I have spent, over 20 years in the medical device industry working for various multinational companies. And most recently, I was at MOLLI Surgical as the chief marketing officer. And we were an early stage company out of Toronto with a breast cancer surgery device. After 3 years of commercialization, we were acquired by Stryker last July. So it was quite exciting and the culmination of a lot of efforts. So excited to see where Stryker is going to take the technology next. So I am consulting again in the breast cancer space, which is I have a strong passion for supporting this particular group of patients and surgeons and radiologists that serve them. I'm actually just recently part of Perimeter Medical Imaging as their strategic advisory board chair, and they are also in the cancer surgery space. So all very exciting stuff and very happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Nice to hear all of that. That's great and exciting news for you.
Thank you.
Amy, can you share a little bit more about who you are and what you've been doing to change data for MedTech?
Sure. Amy Siegel. I am CEO and co-founder of S2N Health. And thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Diana, for both being here today. I started the company in 2011 with a guy, Tim Kofel, who codes for fun. I do not code for fun. We met at a medical device company, Aspect Medical, which was later acquired by Covidien, where we were launching and developing new technologies based on brain monitoring. So I had the opportunity there in that role to really coordinate and collaborate with every group from sales to engineering to clinical as we were developing and launching new products. Then after the acquisition, went to a startup where I was employee 5 in a diagnostics company trying to, again, develop products that the market wanted from a strategic marketing commercial lens. It was there that I realized there was a need to improve the visibility of the market and customers for MedTech companies when I started S2N. So started S2N with Tim in 2011, really with the goal of accelerating commercial adoption for innovative medical technologies. So you could say I've been in that space for also over 20 years. And I'm really passionate about medical technologies reaching the patient. So now S2N has grown and we've evolved a software platform, RepSignal, which now takes all of that intelligence we've developed over the years, along with, billions of rows of data to really help marketers and sales people in MedTech companies reach and message their customers. So that is what we do now. And I'm in Boston.
Okay.
I'm in the US, so we've got an international group here.
Yes. That's exciting to say that we have an international team that's joining us for this webinar. And also, I think you just gave us a nice little parlay into what we're talking about today, because we are actually talking about the ways that data can impact sales and marketing, not just sales, and act almost as a bridge between sales and marketing to help get teams on the same page and create more buy-in between the sales and marketing teams that are doing all of the activity that's creating growth for med device organizations. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what is happening in the market and the ways that you both are seeing data impact some of the activities that are happening for sales and marketing professionals in the med device space. But to kick things off, can we talk a little bit more about the trends that each of you are seeing in MedTech marketing and sales? Specifically, in terms of how those trends are impacting the ways that med device organizations are conducting marketing and sales?
Diana, you want to go first?
Sure, that sounds good. I don't want to be like a professor of trends, but I can talk about themes and what I think is important. At any early stage company like MOLLI Surgical, in fact, any company that needs to go from A to B, it's almost a race against time where the theme is optimization. That's a word that always sticks out of my mind. And optimization, the big three things that come to my mind are certainly budget. So we do not have an unlimited source of money. And for a marketing budget, doing more with less or the same is key. And so the question is what am I doing with that money? Where am I putting it so that I can get the best result in the quickest amount of time? So that's number one. Number two, certainly getting your first sale and growing your sales quickly as soon as possible under the circumstance of your fundraising and you're trying to use that money wisely. It's kind of like water skiing to me. When you start and then you're in the water with the tips, and then all of a sudden you're going to get up on the water, your first sail, and then you're going to ski over these waves, hopefully, and then just continue to go on higher and higher waves. So optimizing that cycle and making it as short as possible is key to the success of especially an early stage company, but I would argue for any multinational company. I mean, we are delivering value either publicly to our shareholders or to our investors. And three, people. We're humans. We need to sleep, we need to eat. And so in companies that are smaller, every single effort counts. And I always say to myself, if you can get 200% without burning out each person, then you have just created more value, not only for the individual performance, but the performance of the entire company and culture. So to me, the big theme here is optimization all around. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly the need to do more with less is imperative, especially now when there's a lot of uncertainty about supply costs and things like that. Your sales and marketing dollar and MedTech companies typically spend anywhere from 25 to 40% of revenue on sales and marketing. It's a big expense for them, and they want to get more value out of that. They want to be able to shrink that budget and still grow. So certainly needing to optimize the ROI from that investment in sales and marketing dollars, that pressure is not going away. It is only increasing. I would add to the trend, similar to what you experienced, Diana, with MOLLI. Stryker's an example of a company that's grown a lot through acquisition. There's a lot of consolidation going on. MOLLI being one of the latest examples of Stryker's many acquisitions, but Boston, J&J, a lot of the big companies have been on a buying spree. What does this do? Well, the reason why you buy a company is a lot for those synergies, especially being able to leverage an expensive field force, an expensive marketing team across more products, right? But when you do that, you create a lot of confusion, not confusion, you create a bigger challenge among the reps and among the field team, because it's almost like every rep becomes a new rep. They're having to learn a new product. They might have to learn how to reach new stakeholders. The messaging is different. And where I think, for example, we've seen a lot of traction with Rep Signal is time to new rep productivity. But now that every rep is a new rep in some way, with their bags constantly expanding, their territories expanding, it becomes ever more important to be very data focused. So I think that's a big trend I'm seeing in the marketplace related to that inorganic growth through acquisition.
Do you both think that maximizing your people is easier when you have the right tools to direct them to the right people to contact? I feel like that's a conversation that I've been hearing percolate quite a bit in med device right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. The other I would say trend out there, and then I'm curious for your thoughts, Diana, is it's an arms race of information out there. And these markets, especially as you get bigger companies that are all competing in similar spaces in surgical and vascular and certain areas, you can't go into that marketplace unarmed. Your people can't go in unarmed. So they need as much information as possible to make sure they're spending their time with the right customers. They need high fidelity information on who they're talking to and what's going to move them in the marketplace. Another example of a trend, and the reason why you can't go unarmed is that, our customers, the providers, they're consolidating too. They're shifting procedures from one setting of care to another setting of care to optimize their economics. So really knowing where the providers are, where the procedures are, where the activity is, where the patients live, and how to drive patients to new therapies is really critical, very critical at this time.
Absolutely. I was going to save this example for later, but if you take a look at a rep, maybe the best analogy before we get to the rep is I'm driving on a trip and I'm just going to get in my car and I'm not going to know where to fill gas, rest stops, grabbing food, but I need to get to my destination on time. So without that map and that information to get there, it's going to make it very difficult to get there in the length of time in the most efficient way. So when I look at reps and what you're saying, Amy, the same way, you know, ideally a company has a rep in every city, right? So then they can just go and they don't have to fly, they don't have to stay in a hotel, their expenses are minimal, and they can have the discussions with their potential customers whenever they want and just walk out of their house and it's within the radius. But we know that's not true. Depending on the size of the company and the resource, you might have a smattering of reps across the US, Canada, or both. And so they are going to fly somewhere and they are going to stay overnight and they are going to be trying their very best to have as many conversations with the physicians, the hospital providers as possible. And if they don't know where they're going when they land and have a plan of action to set up meetings, they are going to be going back and forth a lot. They're going to be spending a lot of time, maybe downtime that they could be spent having conversations. So the data to provide that map for them is, to me, key. Simple like, yeah, simple like that.
What we see a lot is, salespeople are humans and they go to people they know. And when you hire a new rep, it's often for their relationships. However, their relationships get, I won't say stale because they're still productive, but it gives them blind spots. And I see a lot of frustration at the corporate level, at the leadership level, because they're not growing their territories because they're relying on their same contacts. And they may be, as Diana said, flying out to an area, part of their territory, trying to set up meetings. They start with the people they know. They might walk right by somebody who would be a great customer, whose practice aligns with the technology they're trying to sell, who might have more volume and more to go after, and they just walk right past them. So they can't afford to have those blind spots anymore.
So it sounds like both of you feel like there's a lack of actionable data for med device companies right now that you're both actively working to solve or have solutions that you would recommend. Can you share a little bit more insight into what tools and strategies med device companies are using to solve that data gap?
There's a few thoughts in my mind. I think the first thing is the actual recognition that you need data. Surprisingly, to have actionable data, you have to first have data. And so the decision whether to acquire data, is that too much? Do we need it? The decision making to understand that value is probably the first step in actually being able to action something, is to acquire it and acquire the right one. I will say depending on the company, the size, the needs, the data can come in all forms. Like you certainly don't want to acquire like this massive monster of database for something that you might need something small. Like that would be too overwhelming. So having the right type of data that you acquire is key. And then the second thing is using it, and I'll keep going back to the word optimally. You know, I have an iPhone and I'm sure that I use 10% of its capabilities. And so understanding the fullest capabilities of the data that you have so that you can optimize its use and the value that you've invested in is key. And the third thing I'll add is, you know, I think about our world with AI and it's becoming less and less human. There's still an element of guidance and a personal touch that goes along with the data to help guide your journey with it. That's really important. So when I look at how you action data, getting the right data set, using it optimally, and partnering with a provider of the data that can give that guidance and personal touch, to me, that gives the complete package of how you can execute on all cylinders.
Yeah, and Diana, you just gave a perfect infomercial for what we're doing in the sense of we made that same bet when we started our journey with RepSignal a few years ago in terms of embedding curated intelligence into existing platforms for our customer. So Courtney, you mentioned something key, which is actionability. So at this point, you know, most MedTech companies have access to some level of data. I don't think anyone's completely blind. However, it's often overwhelming. I like that word that Diana used. It's overwhelming. It requires a lot of manual effort by skilled people to mine that data and make it useful. And then the burden of actually delivering it in an actionable way to commercial teams is yet an additional burden. So there's the curation and like, what of this large data asset I've acquired or this data asset I've acquired is actually useful to me? And then how do I present it to a commercial team, either in marketing or sales, in a way that they can quickly action on it? And additionally, I love what you said, Diana, about you don't just need a data vendor, you need a partner. Because number one, no data is perfect. Number two, data is just the foundation. A lot of what we spend our time on is taking analytics on top of that data, including AI, to really say, you know, who is my next best customer? What should I be messaging them? You know, reading into the data, things like what is the persona of this customer in front of me? What's going to move them to purchase? Like that's a whole layer of analytics that you need a really experienced partner to help you derive. And we've made that bet by having a strong services team, a strong analytics team that works hand in hand with our customers to drive those insights.
I think that's so interesting to hear you put it that way. And you're right, that was kind of a perfect pitch for what we're doing with RepSignal. But I do have a question for you, Diana. As you are seeing organizations look at acquiring data, and they're thinking through that process, you say they need data to make that decision to buy data. What else goes into that decision-making process? Are there other considerations that you would recommend a client make as they're considering a data source? And how are they looking to deploy that data to their reps to make it really actionable for them, or even to their marketing team to make it really actionable for their marketing team to use to target the right people?
Yeah, so I would say yes, usually it starts with marketing in terms of determining what are the data needs to support sales. You know, if I look back on our journey, we probably made a decision without really understanding the needs of the sales team and the company and maybe the cart before the horse. And so if I peeled it back, understanding exactly what the objectives are for the sales and the usability for marketing and sales to generate the data. In some cases, it can be maybe a bit more difficult than others. All of those considerations you probably don't think of right away. So it's almost as if there was a checklist of considerations up front of how to acquire data, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're used to using something that's been legacy, like, so for example, I've worked in a lot of medical device companies that are multinational. So that stuff's been in place. So there's no decision that's being made. It's just been there. But then you go to a new company or an early stage company, and then you start the decision. It's thinking, okay, what are the considerations? So maybe a thought is to say, these are some things to think about when you're thinking about finding the right partner for your data program and support. So that would be one thing in terms of the checklist. And then probably a little bit more on the internal customer and understanding from the sales team and the marketing team to a degree what's beneficial, as opposed to kind of like looking at this really nice shiny object and saying, hey, I've heard this one's really good and everyone else seems to have it, so it must be good and it must be right for us. And it might not be. So I would say the less that a sales rep has to do, the better. And it's no offense against them, but they have one job, and that is to be out with the customers, having conversations that add value, not slicing data and finding their own insights and then carrying it out with them. So the more that can be done to basically hand it to them or hand it to marketing, in my mind, the better. I mean, we talked about this, not to be dramatic, but a race against time, right? You have money and you have to deploy it in the best way. And if you run out and you haven't deployed it in the best way to get the best results, then that could signal some challenges ahead. So the sales team is the front line. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to have those conversations with the customer. So if I think that a sales rep is behind their computer looking at data or trying to understand it versus being out with potential customers, then I would say that's probably not the most optimized use of time. So any insights and actionable data that can be delivered, not spoon-fed, I didn't say that, but make it easy. That's the best thing possible.
Amy, as you think about that, how are you seeing clients use that data, that really actionable data that has those insights tied to it, to shape their sales and marketing strategy?
So maybe we could talk a bit about marketing first. And Diana, I'd love your perspectives on this as well. Marketing is a big champion of ours typically at organizations, because they're in the process of formulating how do we most effectively engage a customer as a group. So they're the ones thinking about the messaging behind the marketing. They're thinking about the segmentation and the targeting. What segments are we going to go after that we can move with our new data or with our new indication or with our new feature on our product. They're the ones kind of trying to create that targeting strategy that then gets filtered down to the reps. So what we see is with our integration, for example, into Salesforce, we can partner with marketing to help them identify the segments, which they're generally typically pretty good at. They need some support. They need some data to do that. We have that. But where I think it breaks down today that we really help with is that connectivity from marketing that says, hey, here's the place we can grow. Here's the opportunity we can pursue. Here's the value we've unlocked with this new innovation. The connectivity to then discrete sales targets and instructions or guidance to the reps on not just who to approach, but how to approach them is often where the disconnect happens currently. So, our goal is to be embedded across their existing systems. Whether you have, a marketing team that's looking at a Tableau dashboard or a Power BI dashboard, and converting that same exact insight, the same ground truth data to the sales team that knows, okay, this is the target, these are the messages, here are the people that I can go after in my territory that this should resonate with. And then closing the loop to tracking, was I able to qualify those customers? Did I create a new opportunity? Am I working now successfully towards my quota? I'm creating, a pipe that's going to get me to my quota. And then leadership is the last piece of the puzzle, where they can then understand, was this effective? Did we go after the right folks? What else do we need to do to drive growth? So I think the way we approach it is very much from a systems approach, to connect all those dots, to provide the insights and the technology and the connectivity between marketing to sales to leadership, then back to marketing. That's really been missing. It's quite siloed right now, and information is quite siloed right now. We're changing that.
Absolutely. I mean, think of all the companies that where the employees feel that another department is going in their own direction, all that, to be able to have a commonality and a same language and a same, I guess, beacon where everyone's looking towards and saying, yes, this is the truth here, and we're all aligned to it. Well, it's kind of, I always love analogies, kind of like when you're rowing, right? In the companies where someone's rowing in one direction, someone's rowing in another. And if everyone's in the same boat with the same information and you can connect everyone that way, then you're going to row faster and get to the finish line, which is always about the finish line. And then beyond the finish line, right, Amy? Once you get to the finish line, you go past that.
Then they just move the finish line.
Exactly.
Then they just move it. Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. And we're all about helping people row in the same direction in a tight line, and get to their destination faster. And those are some of the metrics we track with our customers is, like I mentioned, time to new rep productivity, time to sales close, how much new pipe is generated. And we're seeing a real impact by, connecting the dots here on our customers' bottom line, on their efficiency. It's great to see it's a feel good, because that means new technology is getting to patients faster too.
Yeah. So did you talk about measuring productivity and, time to close and, how much effort, Salesforce effort, things like that your database can do?
Yeah, so we absolutely do measure that. We have very tight metrics tracking to know, did you find a customer using Rep Signal Insights? Were you able to qualify that customer? How much new pipe was created? So we have tools right within the application. Also, we're embedded in Salesforce. So, part of our roadmap is to, as we draw reps more into Salesforce, which they love Salesforce. I am being highly sarcastic. They do not love Salesforce because, as Diana said, what reps want is to spend time in the field. What the team expects them to do is sell, and time in Salesforce is seen as the opposite of selling. However, to have visibility at a leadership level, to keep the organization aligned, to track metrics that help you know where to improve and where to push, you do need reps in Salesforce. You need them to track their activity. You need them to, create contacts and opportunities in Salesforce. And, there are ways around that. We're exploring different uses of AI to ally with the rep in minimizing the amount of time that they have to spend in Salesforce, because you can use AI and intelligence to fill a lot of gaps there, but you can't fill every gap. You still need the rep to play ball a little bit. So the more that you can provide value out of that Salesforce investment to the reps, which is what we're aiming to do, the better everyone's sort of on the same page. Now they're not just feeding a beast of Salesforce for Big Brother. They're now getting what they need to help them sell and be successful and hit their quota in there, while they're also learning how to navigate more in Salesforce so that everyone's on the same page and there's more visibility across to really help to know where to grow and what's working and what's not.
Another area that the two of you can probably both speak to really well is that when sales and marketing are aligned, everyone is more productive, and that is what helps to shorten the sales cycle. How do you think having access to the same data and a deeper data set impacts that connection between sales and marketing?
My personal opinion on marketing, besides their role in strategy and branding, building awareness, is making the job of the sales team as easy as possible. I know if we can't help the sales force in every single way execute, then I don't feel like we've done our job. And so to arm the sales team with data, with actionable insights that allow them to make their job easier. When you bring value to somebody, internal or external, then the collaboration begins. And so being able to say, hey, you know what, I created this plan for you, or here's a plan of actionable insights when you go to this particular area and talk to these particular physicians, and they're able to have that background so that it's not a cold call. You've actually warmed up because you've given a background and data. You've almost made that first meeting, and and I know you don't get a lot of time. You made that first meeting way more impactful because you might not get back there for a little bit. So if you arm the rep with the right data and to use it in that short period of time, they've got the background, they know their customer a bit better than if they went in cold, then that conversation will have advanced much faster than if they came in by themselves. So I feel like marketing bringing that value to sales can create that teamwork and that collaboration.
For sure. We used to call it air cover. How can marketing, build that air cover for sales? As they're the infantry, going out of the front lines, you need the air cover. One really interesting trend we've seen in the use of our data, and something that we're supporting, is what we call sort of persona-based marketing. So a recent example was working with a large MedTech company where they had an indication of a technology that was underutilized. At the same time, the technology, because of contracting at certain sites, inventory was starting to build up. So they were concerned about reorder rates. So marketing came to us as a solution partner and said, hey, we have this indication, we think it's underutilized. Can you help us identify some targets for the reps who have these patients that could benefit from this other indication, and maybe they can use some of the inventory that they're building up? So first thing we did was, validate through our data, like which physicians own these patients, have these patients for this second indication. Then we kind of were able to tie that, because again, we live inside of Salesforce with their current accounts and the current accounts that we're seeing inventory build up. And we could deliver through Rep Signal to each territory, hey, here's a half dozen or a dozen targets that you can push. Here's some messaging maybe that the marketing team developed for those customers, so that maybe you can reduce that inventory backlog and you can see your reorder rate increase. So that's an example where marketing really could partner with sales, with our data, to grow and solve a business problem and help the reps out very discreetly, leveraging our data.
Yeah, and ultimately the patients who received that device or the treatment benefited. So being able to provide that data is only impacting a greater patient population, which is what we want in the end, is to bring our devices and technology to a broader patient population so that they can recover better, have a better experience, whatever that might be.
Yeah, that's a great point, because these were patients that would get to treatment faster because it was a diagnosis and monitoring technology, might have a problem diagnosed sooner. The physicians maybe weren't as aware of this second indication. It's very well used in Europe, but not in the US, though it's on label in the US. So, that was a great point, Diana, that, these are patients that are now benefiting from this technology.
You both mentioned a couple of key points several times in this conversation in terms of what leadership needs to be thinking about as they consider data as a resource for their organization. One is budget, The second is optimizing the sales cycle. And the third is the efficiency and productivity of their people. So with those three things in mind, what do you think is the most important data to arm your reps with, and why? That's kind of a loaded question. I'm sorry.
I would like Amy to go first.
We'll put you on the spot.
It's like picking amongst my children, which data point is most impactful. I'm going to answer that in a couple of parts because I think it depends what you're trying to do. A lot of times, MedTech companies and other companies talk about their sales in terms of farmers versus hunters. So the farmers are the ones that are maintaining accounts, trying to marginally grow them, calling on current customers. The hunters are the ones fighting for that new business. Capital sales reps are classic hunters. So the most important thing for a hunter is really, where can I go next? Who am I not calling on? Who are we not selling to? Who are we not selling enough to that I can go hunt? So they're, the most important data is probably more that targeting data, that straight activity data. The farmers, it might be more subtle. They might need to understand a little bit more about how their customers are using the technology. They start digging into more maybe the economic value of the technology, and some of those endpoints become more important. They might be engaging more with supply chain or other stakeholders they need visibility to. They might be doing more IDN sales, so they need to understand really how things roll up at the IDN level. One thing we are seeing though is that companies can't afford farmers anymore, exclusive farmers anymore, especially as they add these new products and technologies to their bag. So everyone's got to learn how to be a hunter a little bit more. And so, I think that's something that, that targeting data is really important for, even for the farmers, because the farmers are kind of a dying breed, the pure farmers, as far as I can see. There are very few of them left.
I would agree with Amy on the first one with targeting, because without targeting and actually knowing where you're going, there is no conversation that's going to be happening or messaging. So if I don't know who they are and I don't know where I'm going to be lost. So that data and the list and where and a little bit about the practice, and this is where you'll go to maximize your time, is key. It's the first step in the long journey, or hopefully short journey, of technology adoption by the customer.
This was so insightful. And before we move on, I'm not sure that we'll have space for Q&A. So if we will try to get to your questions if you have them at the end. And if we don't, we will pass all of your questions along to both Diana and Amy after the event, and they can reach out to you individually. But Diana, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing today and how anyone attending the webinar can get in touch with you after the session?
Sure. So I'm providing, let's call it executive level marketing and strategic support to companies that may not be able to hire someone full time. So that might be early stage companies, budgets frozen, and leveraging my experience from early stage companies and multinationals to be able to help grow, the next generation of companies. That's near and dear to my heart. And the other thing, just in general, is, I guess maybe as I get older, I want to continue to be a connector of people. It's, if I talk to you or Amy and you tell me something that you need, and I say to myself, I know somebody that might have an answer to that question or can provide that resource, and I connect the two of you, then this kind of circle in the web grows bigger. And I feel like the more connections we can make across this broader community, the more impact we can have. So that's what I love to do. I welcome anyone to reach out if they need help. And if I can be of service, then that's absolutely what I want to do.
And I would just add that I'm a huge Diana Chan fan because I so admired the work you did at MOLLI Surgical. I saw the impact you had and the buzz you created, and how that, I'm sure, led to an enhanced value that Stryker applied to MOLLI Surgical when they acquired the company. I don't think people typically think of marketing as having that level of impact. But certainly it was visible at MOLLI, and I think a good model to follow, whether at a small company or a large company. I don't know if you have anything you did specifically, Diana, that you're most proud of in that scenario, but I certainly admired you from afar and the work you were doing.
Thank you. I feel like our organization just looked at the customers we serve, which are ultimately the patients, the breast cancer patients, and of course the surgeons, radiologists, and the care teams that support them. But we always had this mantra at MOLLI that it's not about the treatment, but the treatment journey. And so if you think of a breast cancer treatment journey, they get diagnosed and they go for treatment and follow up, and being able to be of service across that journey, as opposed to saying, hey, we're a breast cancer surgery device, so we're used for surgery and hello and goodbye. The philosophy of the company to do that, and how it came across in maybe our messaging, our branding, how we interface with our surgeons and radiologists, I feel as a team, potentially that's what kind of came out from who we were and what we stood for. So maybe if marketing had a role in that, and letting people know where we stood, then maybe that was a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that insight into the patient journey, I've personally experienced that, having been on that breast cancer patient journey in the last 18 months. I understand the importance of understanding the entire journey there. So I appreciate that you invested the time at MOLLI and created that brand personality around that entire patient journey. I would say from a data and rep signal point of view, we are often digging into patient journeys to find how to reach a patient, how to drive activity towards a novel technology. So we're also looking at the patient journey in the data, and the breast cancer patient journey is a complex one. So, that's a good example of where you can't approach a problem in 2 dimensions. You have to approach it in multiple dimensions. And I was very excited to partner with you on this because of our shared passion about the breast cancer space as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Amy. It's a passion of ours to be able to support this population and all the physicians that serve it. And I know that Rep Signal is used across more than breast cancer. I think if we just approach outside in general and use the data, because in the end, the data is going to help us get this technology to more patients faster. And yes, it's through the reps, it's through the surgeons and the radiologists and the other physicians, but the people in the end that are going to benefit from this whole entire journey behind the scenes is ultimately the patient. And that's what we want. We want to be able to bring the best technology as fast as possible to more hospitals so that more patients can benefit, and their families, of course, that support them.
Yep, that's what gets us up every day too. So.
Me too.
It was great to have you both on. Amy, before we jump off, do you want to just share a quick little update on how folks can get in touch with you as well after this episode?
Sure. You can reach me at s2nhealth.com, repsignal.com, take your pick. We have a great team. We're happy to set up a demo for you of our platform, share some of our success stories. I'm in Boston. I have the best roof in the city in my building. So always happy to have a little roof cocktail if you're in Boston. So thank you, Courtney, so much for organizing this.
Yeah, it was great to talk to both of you. You have so much insight, and we will be sharing more information in the chat if you want to download any of our one-pagers that are popping up there for you now, or if you'd like to download the contact information for today's panelists, that is also available for you there. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.